This week on Induction Noise. Our special guest tells it like it is.
He's a dirty old man and she's a gold digger.
Actually, I'm not so sure what he's talking about.
She happened to have a couple of these oversized bears.
In fact, he makes no sense whatsoever.
My backside is 150 millimeters from the top.
Hi guys, and welcome to Induction Noise. Once again, we're recording in my office, which is Gilmore Collection. If you're looking for a nice Ferrari, Alfa, Aston Martin, what else have I got in here? Maseratis, Lamborghinis, two-door sports cars. That's kind of what we do. Please come and chat to me. But with me today, as always, is Andre.
Hey there.
We have Niku.
How's it going?
We have Neil.
Good evening.
And our guest this evening is Mr. Jim Page.
Well, hello guys.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Good to have you.
We're gonna get into what it is that you do and why you are here a little bit later on. See, this is what we do in YouTube and in like podcasts. We give you a little morsel of what's to come, and then we don't tell you, and then you get all excited and you're like, oh, I must listen to the end.
After the break.
After these words from us, no. So you listen to the show, so you know this happens on a regular basis. We have been inundated with an email, and obviously, being the kind, caring souls that we are, we have to dispatch our wonderful car buying advice before we can get into the rest of the show.
It's our way of giving back.
It's our way of giving back to the community for all the millions that we get from doing this.
Yeah.
When is that check coming, by the way?
I've been watching the mail.
So apparently the Zimbabwean president has some issues with their currency currently. So, their million that they were going to send to us apparently isn't a million anymore. Some
1
nonsense.
billion Zimbabwean dollars.
1 billion. 1 billion.
So anyways, we have been inundated with an email. It reads as follows. Dear Induction Noise, I really smark your show and listen to the kiff advice you give to car buyers all the time.
Is this writer Jamie?
No, it's not actually.
Wow, okay.
So I've schemed to inundate you with an email. Mr. Q and I both have fairly nasty commutes in traffic. So I don't really want to drive my prized Porsche Boxster S on a daily basis. I also don't really want to spend too much money on a daily either, because I can hardly afford the Porsche as it is. But my girlfriend really digs it because she can use it for her pics on the gram. I believe that's Instagram or something along those lines. Mr. Q is obviously a genius, though, because the X-Type diesel Jag station wagon is the perfect daily for 100K or less.
Propaganda, but okay.
It's gospel truth. I mean, it's in the email. You can't argue with it.
Is this your life partner that we haven't met or something?
No. I mean, this is just some random stranger.
Oh, you're the girlfriend that loves the golf.
Have you seen my Instagram? So anyway...
Boutique pics, we wouldn't know.
But it also looks like he's got the last good one for sale in the country, and I just can't find one anywhere, which I can pretty much say is gospel truth because you can't find them anywhere.
Especially not one with a golden leaper on the
Exactly, a golden leaper is a special edition right there. So my commute is shorter than Mr. Q's, about 25 kilometers each way, so fuel consumption isn't as much of a biggie to me. As long as it's below sort of 10 liters per 100 kilometers, I'll be fine. But I would like something that's comfy and practical for around 100 grand. Is Mr. Q's car for sale, or what else should I be looking for? Your biggest fan, Mr. X.
So he's someone that grew up in Kommetjie and then moved to Noordhoek because of the house that
Quite possibly, yeah.
And because you can't drive a Porsche in Kommetjie, I guess, so it's more Noordhoek vibe than...
there could be
You'd
a
be
bit of...
surprised at the number of Porsches emanating from Kommetjie.
Kommetjie, okay.
Porsches, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I should spend more time on that side of the...
You must come there.
You must come there.
Kommetjie not to.
Check if there's any Cayman R's knocking about there that you can wheel and deal about. But
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is quite the easiest email we've ever had because
No, it's very easy.
to
What
be fair,
alpha are you going to
we
suggest?
all kind of love shit boxes, so most of our cars is under 100k. So you will go to anywhere that you can buy alpha, whether it's We Buy Cars, whether it's Auto Trader, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, or whether it's our resident advertiser Peter Horn. Squadra, Corsa,
100k is not going to be enough, man. Sorry about that.
Anyway,
You're going to get a 100k car, but 100k is not going to be enough.
We can do two
That's
things.
not the sponsorship that he's paid for, guys.
You see, there's normally two answers to this. It's going to be we all advocate for the cars we own, right? Or we give proper consumer advice.
No, but this,
Why can't it be both? Why can't it be both?
this is going to be brilliant consumer advice. And I believe because I do keep an eye on every alpha that is for sale,
As one does.
as one does,
one
you
does.
know. There is a 1750 159 for sale at We Buy Cars for under 100k. And that, my friend, is what you're going to have to go buy.
But that's not its price, though. So there's a good chance that it's got some brandy.
If it's a
marks on it.
We Buy Cars price tag, you can buy it for that price. But you're going to have to spend that much again to like...
Well,
Especially if it's a B
Facebook
category.
Marketplace is full of 159s for under 100k as well.
Under 100? No, but you
Yeah,
not the 1750s.
Look, you're not going to get a TI or whatever, but you're still going to get a good-looking 159.
But the old ones, the 2.2s in them, is under 100.
I mean, if he likes a Jagan, you know, 159's got to step up looks-wise.
That's
you know?
true. That's very true.
159. You know you like a 159 as well.
I'm not gonna argue there. I think the 159 is definitely a better looking car than the Jagan. The Jag is spectacular, and it is an Ian Callum design, by the way.
Did you know?
But yeah, the 159 probably is a better looking car. I've not driven a 159, but I really want to, and I have actually said in the past that if I ever get to a position where I'm going to change the Jag for something else, I might consider a 159. For me, the 159's fuel consumption, even in 1750 form, is just a little bit on the heavy side. That's the only problem.
Then you'll have to go to the 2.4 JTD diesel. But I mean, an Alpha and a diesel.
Alpha with the diesel,
You
do you
might
really
as
want to go there?
well. You might as well go bury yourself from the start. You know.
It's a bit like kissing your sister.
Yeah, it's almost a bit more rough than that. You know, it's. You know, so yeah. But anyways. There will be a 159 for sale somewhere that you can buy for that price tag. I'm sure
there
of
will
it. And I mean, to be honest, Alpha is quite a hard sell, so you can bargain.
And you'll probably get a 1750 for that price, but it won't be a 1750 Ti.
It won't be a 1750 Ti, but it would be a 1750.
Yeah,
There's a
that you
diesel
could do.
listed now, 159 the JTD.
That's also a good buy.
80,000.
Yeah. You know what's actually
For a
also a
commute,
good
because
buy?
it's light for fuel.
Yeah, but you know what's actually also quite a good buy, but fuel economy, a GT.
Yeah, no, the fuel is going to.
But you get that with a 1.9 diesel.
Yes.
No, the 3.2 is going to
do.
be very heavy.
Yeah, the
But-
3.2 is going to be
Yeah.
really heavy,
Yeah.
but you do get a 1.9 diesel.
You don't need 100k for that. You can almost buy two for 100k.
But
So you can have a spare one. You know, if the one happens to break down, for
because
whatever reason.
Alphas never break
I
down.
mean-
I mean, if you happen to have, if you have something like a flat wheel, you know, you get another one.
My Alpha's
never know.
never broken down.
No.
How's your aircon, by the way?
Yeah, we won't talk about that one.
If it never worked, you can't say that it's broken.
My aircon works perfectly. You just need to take the roof down.
And how
But-
does your roof mechanism work, by the way?
Perfect.
Is it manual?
No,
Press a button.
It's a button.
But does it work on the button?
Yes.
Really?
It's always worked on the button for
Okay.
all 300 something kilos of it. 300 something thousand kilos of it. Well, the yellow Spider that I'm here with, its aircon works perfect. It was cheaper
And
than
you
mine.
can even get a nice GTV or a Spider.
Yeah.
A 2 liter.
2 liter, and 2 liter is quite loud on fuel.
Yes.
So you take the aircon out, then you also got a hardcore daily.
You see,
There
exactly.
we go. We'll get back to that.
And then you chop the windshield off in front, and you just cover the one
Monoposto,
sign, and you've got a monoposto.
The problem with that though is like, I mean, your forehead's gonna burn. Well, I know, at least mine burns quite a lot. I'm not hardcore like Jim, like with that, with what he's driving every day.
Neil, but it's because yours stick out the top of the car.
It is like basically.
But yeah, so my suggestion is any Alpha.
Okay.
Any Alpha.
And you can pick a lot of Alphas under 100k.
Yeah.
Neil?
Well, I was busy
What
scrolling.
Nissan would you go for?
I was busy scrolling through this. Actually, 115 pages on Auto Trader at the moment with cars under 100 grand because I've hit a complete blank, to be very honest.
So what Renault quid?
There's actually not. I mean, I don't think you can buy a quid for that price.
I should hope you don't buy a quid for that price.
Don't buy the
Quite
mini price.
frighteningly, the quids are actually quite expensive to buy compared to some of the cars that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And they
Consumer
are
as
absolutely
price.
horrible things.
Do not buy a quid at
Renaults
any
have
price.
this nasty ass thing with their clutch mechanisms. I wouldn't touch a Renault with a barge pole.
But is that
thank
even
you.
a Renault? The quid isn't even really a Renault.
I think-
Well, no, it's an Indian.
It's
It's
some
an Indian
copy.
some IDM, some Indian domestic market.
It has
Well,
a whiff of curry about it.
I guess we'll loop back to you. What Alpha are you suggesting, Andre, or what RAV are you suggesting?
I've actually got a solution, but so before that, let me hit you with another. As much as I like normally disagreeing with Andre, with everything he says, especially after the weekend in Samola.
You see, he likes disagreeing with me. He doesn't disagree, but he just likes disagreeing.
We've established that we're not an echo chamber, although it sounds like that sometimes with it, yeah, but we have to have different views of it. I think your sort of go-to is anything like small, something like a RAV, or like a Forester. Maybe it's because, I mean, over the weekend I was out in the Overberg and there's so many nice gravel roads. So for that sort of price, you're going to get something really boring otherwise. Like you're going to have to get something, you know, whatever Corolla or Nissan Tiida or whatever there is. I don't know. I don't feel like taking a chance on something like a big BMW or a Mercedes, which will cost you an arm and a leg. So go something Japanese, something a little bit higher off the ground. RAV, maybe if you can get like an early Jimny even, or
Like, it'll be more expensive. It's like one.
yeah, you're probably not going to get it for that price. But I mean, you can get something like Foresters, RAVs, that sort of thing. You can get a lot of.
You touched a good point there. Forester.
Or sports car, maybe like
Yeah.
an early MX-5.
I was
Something you
going
can
to
rally
suggest
sprint over the weekend.
Yeah.
There we go.
I was going to suggest something like a Forester or a XC70 or something along those lines because they're not terribly expensive to run. They've got a little bit of ruggedness to them.
Yeah.
They have all the practicality of a normal wagon, which we have established over this weekend's road trip is the best thing since sliced bread.
And a bit more because you can go off-road.
And a bit more, because you can go off-road with it. The Jag doesn't like going off-road.
No, we established that as well.
The Jag
this
is a bit
weekend.
like, you know those cats on YouTube when they go outside and the grass
on the
is wet
grass.
and they pick up their feet like that? That's what the Jag does when you take it on a dirt road.
It can, but it protests.
Plus, we also know that little kids love Jags, especially because it reminds them
yes.
of their grandmas, basically.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Yeah, I was hoping you guys forgot
So
that.
when we were on a recent trip, we were driving like slowly, and there's a lot of traffic away from the Samola event, and there's this little kid running, and it's like, Mommy, look at this car. It's the same as Grandma's.
Well, that'll do you. What about a little Peugeot, just to put a bit of a French accent to it? Some of the little 3.0 Peugeots
You can
are
get
not
them
bad.
you can get them for cheap and they're fun to drive.
They are nice cars, and they handle well.
The old 306s, I actually looked at like the
306s are
GTIs with like those high revving,
Yeah.
what is it, the 2 liter or something
2
like that.
liters,
Then you
yeah.
can easily get under that,
You
under
can
100
get Clio
grand.
RSs for that
Yes,
kind of price, for under 100.
French, yeah.
It must be said that French cars, generally speaking, the interiors will fall to pieces. The bodywork's maybe a little bit.
The last good Renault was the 4.
That's a while back.
Mechanically, they're pretty solid. I mean, those Clios will do lots of thousands of miles without
Unless they break down before then.
unless that. But the thing that puts me off the idea of a Peugeot, I have no idea what their pricing's like on parts.
It's
Because
curious.
most French cars are quite expensive when it comes to parts, aren't
But
they?
they're also quite tainted with the same thing as my era of Spider. Most parts is Bosch parts on them, isn't it?
Those are normally stuff that breaks on an Alpha.
And
the
that's
Bosch
normally,
parts.
yeah, no, it's normally
It's the
stuff
German
that-
stuff on the
But
Alpha.
you can get them. I'm not saying it's going to work, but you can get them.
Yeah, what we've seen is that the Peugeots tend to be more reliable than the Renaults,
Okay.
and are probably easier to maintain if it comes to that.
That's a top
But
tip.
Peugeots are quite well built.
Yeah.
The
Unless you drive them into a wall.
I mean,
What?
Peugeot's part of the PSA group,
Yes.
which is Peugeot, Citroën, and I think Volvo were involved in it at one
Volvo,
stage.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, that's now Geely.
Yeah.
Volvo
that's not
Geely.
Geely. Well, either or their service is
That's
dog,
n-
but I
that-
won't go back to that.
That's not ideally.
That is not ideally, no.
Okay.
I thought you would try and maybe convince us on now that we're talking about the Frenchies, the Twingo Sport.
I didn't think of that, but it's a good
That's
suggestion.
a cool little car, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you get that for 100 grand?
Yeah, you
Under
do
it,
get
yeah.
them
Can.
for like 90k. Sometimes they're like at 110.
It's actually a bit rough because for
there's-
that you can buy a proper Alpha for that money.
No, 100%. But I know Neil's got quite a liking to the
They're cool.
Twingo
like
Sport.
like a R, yeah, I think it's the
Small
RS.
French
RS.
sporty cars are nice.
Yeah.
Um,
I've looked at that a lot. I mean, funnily enough, the 306s, because I like the sort of older generation ones with the sort of flat front ends, and there was a few of them floating around where guys like turned them into track cars, and I've seen.
but that's kind of modern classic, right?
Yeah,
almost.
not. I mean, it's not now. I mean, one of the more desirable. Like, what is the same era as like the MI16? You know, there was like this one Peugeot, the 405, which had like a MI16 badge on it. Completely
90s, late
outside
90s,
of my area of expertise.
it's
But
late
that sort
90s.
of. It was called the MI16. It was like a really like British intelligence naming.
Speaking of Peugeots, though, because our man, Mr. X, wants something that's, he said, comfortable and practical, one of the biggest, most comfortable, most practical cars that you can buy for next to no money at all is that big Peugeot 40, I think it's a 405 or a 406 or something.
406 and a 407 you also got. You guys had a 407, right?
Yeah, it's like a
we
big
had
saloon
a
car.
508.
508, that's a
That's the
big
508,
one.
yeah.
we
And
had a 508, that's a
they
cool
did do an
car.
estate version of it, but very few of
Yeah.
them came to South Africa. But you get that with a pretty decent range of engines. I think they did a V6, they did a diesel. That could be quite cool as a sort of slightly off the beaten track choice.
That 508 is the car I'm speaking about that went into the wall.
Went into
by
the
the
wall,
way.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
don't-
There's just
That was
so
quite a-
much that can go wrong.
The issue is the people that work on them, because once again with that Peugeot, as I said, or as I explained, I think I told you about the car. Is what happened is my dad woke up the one morning, went to the car, just didn't want to start. Engine was just swinging,
See, that's the kind of stuff that...
and immediately we were like, okay, cool, it's fuel pump. Logically, it's a fuel pump because it sounds like it's sparking, it sounds like there's compression or whatever. It's just fuel pump went dead. They came, got the car, it was still under warranty. It wasn't high kilos, nothing. They came, got the car, and we said, okay, we believe the fuel pump is gone. Plugged in a computer, no. Engine, boom, gone. Like, you sure? They said, yeah, the engine's gone. So, okay,
Overnight, right? So you stopped it,
So,
and
yeah,
then the morning the
stopped
engine
it,
was
next
gone.
morning engine is gone. You know, that's how it works.
Sounds like a go-kart engine. You know, starting at the next and just
Here's the thing,
miraculously
you've
it's
got to
broken.
understand French culture, because that kind of is the way that the French are. They'll go to war one day, go to bed, wake up the next morning and go, this is not for us
This is not
anymore.
working anymore. So Peugeot ordered a new engine for the car. It came after like 2-3 weeks or something. Or took long. Put in the engine, went to push the button to start, and nothing. So
Engine is also broken.
engine is also broken. I don't know. So they replaced the fuel pump. The car started, and they immediately proceeded to drive the car into a wall
in the workshop.
That sounds a little bit like the story that got Audi into their their American racing series. You know, they had this unintended acceleration phenomenon.
Okay.
And it turned out that the old Audi, remember the very first round 500?
Yeah.
So a couple of elderly drivers had an incident where the car supposedly suffered from unintended acceleration and launched itself into their garage wall or door or whatever.
I need to make a note of this, and next time a traffic cop pulls me over for speeding, it's unintentional.
Unintended acceleration.
But this was in the days before there was an interlock on the automatic gear change.
Yeah.
And it was Audi that pioneered that
Okay, because they drive
to
the car into a wall.
prevent this unintended acceleration phenomenon, where people were resting their foot on the gas pedal and pulling the gear lever into D or P.
Wow.
Well, that'll do it.
Sounds about right. So if you own a Peugeot or Audi, please stay away from the gas before you've pulled away.
Or a Tesla. I've seen some videos where
Or
people
Tesla.
with Tesla flying into walls.
So, Mr. X, we didn't give you a conclusion, but buy Alpha, man. It's cool.
Or a
I haven't
Subaru.
actually- I haven't
Andre's
told
not
you
giving.
what
I
to
was
buy.
waiting on like Andre. What is your choice?
It's very
This is
simple.
because he would just say RAV.
Just get a 1996 to 2000 RAV4, Gen 1, the base gen. Just get one, the best one you can find. For
And
100K, you can buy one with low mileage, like 200,000 Ks.
barely run in.
Exactly.
And you can rally it as well.
Like new, exactly. You can rally it on the weekends, get yourself a navigator, rally on the weekends, and then on Monday you go back to work.
You know what, if you can stretch your budget a little bit, what other cool sort of 90s Toyota like SUVs you can buy. You remember the first gen Prado, they had a two-door version of that.
Very rare thing, if you can
I
find one.
found one this morning actually. It was
Okay.
quite over budget. It was now
They
actually
are
we
more
should have checked it
expensive.
out in George. 150.
Yeah, that's
150. Okay, now
But I
so that's
also
not
think
within
you
the
would
budget, but I think that's
struggle-
pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
very cool.
Even a diesel Prado, I think you would struggle to get to 10 liters per 100.
You won't.
Yeah,
true.
it's going to be heavier than that.
But,
A RAV will give you exactly 10. If you
Exactly.
regardless of how you drive
if
it,
you
it'll
rally,
give you 10.
if you rally, you'll get about 9.
Is no one going to say like
competitive.
Camry? First gen Camry, guys? So we
No,
hark back to episode 1, season 1.
No.
Should we go back there?
I have since road tested a Camry, and I can never, ever in my entire life ever suggest that car to anyone
That's also
ever
a
again.
car that struggled with stuck throttle in the US. Camrys. They also had a big recall.
No, I think it's
So how
just
did
that
they
people
notice- how did they
deliberately
notice
drove
that there was-
into a wall to kill
it's
themselves
probably
after
the-
5 minutes of the abject boredom and misery.
I can't
exactly.
do this anymore. I'm just going to put my foot down.
I can't do it anymore. Like you guys had that minor panic attack on Solari's Pass in the Jag over last weekend.
I was hilarious. I missed that one. What happened?
Oh yeah,
that's
you
when-
weren't there. These guys were convinced I'm trying to kill them going over Solari's Pass.
that on the way
They're
home?
just like, Q's lost the will to live. He's just driving off the cliff. Yeah.
That was on. That was on.
No, that was
on-
Neil.
was
That
on the
was
way
when
there.
Neil was
You were
already
there.
there.
You were
Yeah,
there. It was
that
on the way
wasn't
there.
St. Lowry's.
It was in
It was
St. Lowry's.
further
Man's
on.
looking depressed and he's driving fast. We're like, oh, no.
Meanwhile, he's just teaching us trail braking,
I mean,
apparently.
we do also, we joke a lot, we do care about one another, but at this point, Jim, like we were going over just
Hohoek.
past Hohoek Pass.
Yeah.
And we're now checking in, how's it going? And at this point, Q was like, typical like you do, we vented a little bit, but he was going quite fast. So we was like kind of like questioning, like, are you taking us with you somewhere now? Like, or just stop.
On the Toyota Camry note, the Toyota issued a general recall for all the Camrys last year.
Because you really should have bought something else by now. Sorry. It's very
Nailed
true.
it.
Today's episode is sponsored by Harper Sports Cars. Harper Sports Cars are the geniuses behind the Harper Type 5 and Type 6 sports cars. These are super lightweight race cars for the road. They are fully road legal, they are fully usable and drivable as an car, but you can also take it to a racetrack and absolutely set the pace on fire. And today's episode, we're going to be chatting with a very special guest who happens to have the highest mileage Harper in existence. He's basically using it as a daily driver, which is kind of the equivalent of going out every day with wasabi flavored underwear. So let's have a listen to that. our actual topic of discussion for today, and the reason why Jim is actually here, is extreme dailies. And by that, I mean, a car that is as impractical as a convertible submarine, but for some bizarre reason, you just feel the need to drive it every day anyway.
I just need to make a correction. It's a car that's perceived as being as impractical.
Oh, yeah. But any car is as practical as you're willing to make it, quite frankly.
Exactly.
And Jim has the distinguished honor of owning the highest mileage Harper sports car in existence, whereas mine is probably the lowest mileage Harper sports car in existence. Yours has done how many kilometers now?
I've just pushed over 112,000.
There we go.
112,000 kilometers in what is essentially a race car.
That's a fair assessment.
Nice car on the road.
And it's probably the most well-known Harpers in Cape Town because he always has a buddy next to him.
Yeah, so you might have spotted Jim cruising around the peninsula at some point if you are in Cape Town, because it'll be the bright red Harper with the handsome young man you see next to me. And next to him is Ted.
Theodore Edward Bear. Ted to his friends.
Ted to his friends. So Jim not only owns Roxy the Harper, but also uses Roxy the Harper to attend something that I like attending quite a lot as well, which is the toy run.
Yes. So I got involved in the toy run some years ago, and when I relocated to Cape Town in 2018, I was chatting to a friend who's deeply involved in organizing the toy run here in Cape Town. She happened to have a couple of these oversized bears that they purchased for sale as fundraising efforts for the toy run. Now, Ted is about 4 foot tall, so he doesn't...
He's a proper bear.
He's a big boy.
He doesn't fit well on the back of a motorcycle, unaided. And he kind of doesn't allow himself to be strapped to the handlebars where you can't see over him either. So we kind of went along with the theory that the Harper is probably the next closest thing that you're going to get to a motorcycle on four wheels.
It's a four-wheel motorcycle, basically.
So Ted got strapped into the passenger seat with a Toy Run T-shirt on and makes an appearance every now and again to try and bring awareness to the public that the Toy Run is coming up.
Love it.
He also happens to be the official spokesman for the Toy Run and has his own Facebook page.
And just for the uninitiated, Jim, what exactly is the toy run?
So the Toy Run was started probably 40-odd years ago as a community effort to bring the biking community into a better light by the public in general. So the Toy Run aims to collect and distribute not only toys, but educational materials, books, writing materials, and so on, to children who are, through no fault of their own, in circumstances that are less than ideal. So children's homes, foster homes, things like that. The biking community get together, and they, for the Western Cape, they have I think 2 or 3 different toy runs in the Western Cape, but the Cape Town one collects at the Killarney racetrack. It's typically the last weekend in November, the Sunday, and everybody comes along. Price of entry is to bring a toy to donate. And the
turn-up is massive.
And the turn-up is massive.
The turnout is enormous. I mean, the last time I was there, the entire pit straight between turn 4 and turn 5 was just parked full of motorbikes. And they have these huge collection trucks that they look like garbage trucks, but they've got these huge metal cages on the back. And they were just stacked from the floor to the top, full of toys of all kinds and all descriptions, which is really cool. And with Roxy being something that, you know, when that car goes down the road, it's hard not to notice it. Let's face it. When a race car comes rumbling down the street, someone's going to see it. It's quite cool to see Ted in there as well.
Well, I was trying to work out how often people point and take pictures and so on. And probably 6 months or so ago, driving through Sea Point round to Camps Bay, I decided I would try and make a note of how many people were actually pointing and pointing their phones at me. And in the space of an hour, I counted over 60 people just trying to take a snap and all pointing and going, ooh, oh, look at that.
So on average, it's 1 snap a minute. That is quite...
So, you know, there's a number of pictures of Ted out there in
Very cool.
Roxy.
In the public.
I just want to point out at this point that Jim is not an exhibitionist. He was not driving around naked to get extra pictures taken. That's just the kind of attention that you get when you drive around with the giant teddy bear next to you in a race car.
I have an even better story. So
This one is really going to be nice.
the daughter of a mutual friend is what would be termed a hot young blonde. I mean, she is really, really very attractive. And,
Right, we just got cancelled.
and she came for a ride with me in Roxy one day. I think it was a Saturday morning. We drove through Camps Bay. And you can literally see the thought balloons popping up above people's heads. He's a dirty old man and she's a gold digger.
I wonder how much money he has.
And of course, that's kind of the irony with Harper's, because, I mean, yes, it's an exotic car and it's a very alien driving experience, and it's pretty much as fast as you can possibly go on the road, but it's not that expensive. I mean, buying and owning a Harper is not the most expensive thing that you can do automotively.
No. Absolutely not. So my journey to arrive at a Harper kind of started where I've always been interested in engineering and motor cars and such like. So some years ago, I drew a wish list on the back of an old cigarette box and came up with a design that had taken elements of the McLaren F1, so the three-seater arrangement. And I planned to build this effectively as a pipe car, bodywork to be sort of considered at a later date. Mid-engined with the Audi 500 turbo motor and transmission. And that motor, when you turn it up, you can pull over 700 horsepower out of it.
Yeah.
Which is enough to get your attention. I got to the point where I'd actually modeled this car in balsa.
Oh, wow.
Seats and the whole chassis and everything else. And I never had the access to the equipment or the facilities to do anything with it. And I was working overseas, I was working abroad, trolling through the internet, and I came across Harper Sports Cars webpage. And I looked at that and I thought, that looks like something I could get involved with.
Yeah.
And when I returned to South Africa, I was living in Port Elizabeth at the time, so I returned to SA, phoned Craig, jumped on a plane, flew down to Cape Town, had a look at his car, and said, okay, build me one. So I gave him a deposit, and about a month later, he sent me a message and said, one of the first cars that I built has actually come up for sale because the guy is just unable to do justice to it. He said, would you like to buy that car? Because it'll be faster than me building you a car, which could take 3 or 4 months. But if you want to buy it, it's available now, and it can be yours in 2 weeks. So I said,
Let's
fine.
do that.
I'll send you a check. Well, bank transfer. So that was how Roxy came to be in my possession.
Awesome.
And how did Roxy become Roxy? I mean, where did that name come from?
It just to me, when I walked out and saw this bright red car, it just went, you know what? Think of the song. Roxanne.
There you go.
Turn on the red light. You don't have to turn on the red light. And she was bright and sparkly. And yeah, that was that. It was Red Roxy.
Red Roxy, and that's how the story started.
At that time, what engine did Roxy have?
So at that stage, running the Toyota Blacktop 20 valve.
Okay.
With
1600.
ITBs, 1600. And I came back from my sojourns overseas, and I basically took a year's sabbatical, and I drove Roxy around PE, literally in a 365 day period. I think there was 17 days that I didn't drive it.
Wow. So most of the mileage was basically put on in 1 year.
It was, you know, I was nipping down to the spa to do my grocery shopping. I was going out to the track. Craig suggested I should have a look at getting involved in a little bit of motorsport, and I toddled out to Aldo Scribanti and bumped into an old connection of mine, a chap by the name of Sparky Bright.
Yes.
Sparky used to be the Delta Motorsport, part of the Delta Motorsport team. He was Team Mackie for Mike Briggs and the guys in that era. So Sparky said, well, what are you doing here? Why don't you come and join the club?
Nice.
And that led to me signing up and then participating in the Eastern Cape crowd run a streetcar series.
Nice.
Oh,
So pitch up at the track, long sleeves, long trousers.
And you race.
Your car has to be currently licensed and registered road car on street legal tires, and you race.
you're right.
Anything goes.
And
Awesome.
so the cars that I were competing with, there was a 1972 911 SC. There was a 928 with a 1UZ conversion.
Okay. A Toyota Porsche.
A reliable Porsche.
Just a whole run-of-the-mill variety of cars, a little Hyundais and Kias and whatever.
Nice.
And that was that. It was drive to the track in the morning, practice, qualify,
Love it.
Beat everyone, go home.
have a couple of beers, pick up a prize, go home.
There we go. Pick up a blonde.
For those early years that you were literally driving Roxy on a daily basis, going down to the shops, going everywhere in it, I mean, what's a car like that like to actually live with on a daily basis? And what are the things that you have to sort of give up in order to be able to do that?
Frankly, I don't think I gave up anything. The other car in my garage at that time was a 1600 Sentra, and the Sentra just got parked. If it looked like rain, I'd weigh up the chances, and if it was on the probability that I wouldn't get wet, then I would take Roxy.
It's kind of like riding a bike, right? Because I mean, when I used to drive the MB Agusta as a daily, it was kind of like, okay, it looks like it's going to rain, so you just take an extra jacket or something, and if it starts raining, you put it on.
So
It's
No, bikes aren't fun in the way.
when I went back to working abroad, I would come back on rotation every 6 or 8 weeks, and I frequently would arrive in PE, jump in the car, drive to Cape Town, and come and stay with Craig for a week, and then drive home again.
yeah.
And I had a lovely big thick day-glow yellow jacket and a helmet,
There you
and
go.
was back and forth up and down through Neisner and up and down the N2.
What a road to drive,
So
eh?
I mean, I've probably done the PE Cape Town run a dozen times in Roxy.
That's crazy. And I believe quite recently you did one of your longest stints in Roxy.
Yeah,
And not a fun road like that, just a long-ass stint.
funny story. My mate Jeff. Now Jeff is the only guy outside of Harper Sports Cars that has actually built a Harper. Jeff got the plans from Craig, and every single weld, every single nut and bolt, he put that car together. Got the bodywork all the fiberglass bits from Craig, obviously. But he has wired that car nose to tail. Anyway, we were having a chat in his workshop one day, and he said, you know what, these guys are going up to do this iLamuna thing at Red Star. Why don't we go and watch?
And Red Star is how far?
So I said, oh, cool, let's go. So he was kind of taken aback because he thought I might say no. So we packed our kit and loaded everything into the cars, and we took off. And the round trip was 3,050 kilometers.
That is
In a race car.
So on the way up, we had very little difficulty. We drove, the first day we stopped at Harper Dam. So it's 800 Ks under our belts on the way up there.
Yeah.
And then toddled through, but the Joburg traffic,
It's not fun.
let me tell you.
Yeah. Go through them peak hour, basically.
So we got to Joburg at around 2:30, 3 o'clock on I think it was on a Thursday afternoon.
that's already traffic.
And
And then you got the school traffic.
I, for some reason, decided that I was going to try a new navigation app,
This is something.
Not the best time.
which was a poor choice.
Yeah.
Let me just say that. It was a poor choice.
Is it one of those that all of a sudden tells you, oh, turn here, it's quicker. Oh, no, turn here, it's quicker.
Well, something like that. But we went through the back end of Benoni and Boksburg and wherever it is to get to Mpumalanga. Anyway, yeah, that was the trip up. The trip back was slightly more eventful because on the way back we got to Bloemfontein. We stopped to have a quick snack at the one stop in Bloem.
Yeah.
Jumped in the cars and discovered that it was going to rain, and it rained for the next hour and a bit as we drove.
And the rain is serious in those ports.
And we drove through that rain, mentally kicking ourselves and wondering about our life choices.
So what you give up is you give up some comfort from time to time in the wet.
But I mean, I've had different seats in that car. I've had the Tillet type carbon fiber seat, and I've got Craig's own homemade car. It's a standard fiberglass tub now, but it fits me very well, and to me it's extremely comfortable. I can climb out of that car after driving 800 Ks and not feel that I've got aches and pains and I need
I must
need a
admit,
massage.
somewhere through one of the runs, I had a seat in your car, and I thought, yes, it looks like those old garden chairs. You remember those beige garden chairs? It looks like, I thought, this can't feel right. And I sat in and I was like, what? This feels brilliant. It's oddly comfortable.
It's
I don't know
well-molded.
if it's the angle you sit at or something, but it feels
The angle is quite significant because I know when I'm in the car and I'm reclined like that, my eye line is level with the top of a 16-inch bucky tire.
Yeah.
That's how low it is.
It's kind of like you're laying down
backside,
in
my
like
backside is
F1 car.
150 millimeters from the tar. So you get a different perspective
Get a
on
sense
how
of speed.
everybody else drives.
Because everything can drive over you all of a sudden.
The most frightening experience, I have to say, was driving through Somerset West when one of those 18-wheeler interlinks shed a tread.
Ooh, right next to
You
you.
watch that thing come flying up in the air and going,
Ooh, don't touch me.
Then you feel a bit exposed.
yeah.
right?
But apart from that, no. On the long haul, with a helmet on, I've driven through swarms of bees and things like that and never had an issue.
And that's scary.
Here's the big question, Jim. Obviously, to do the kind of things that you've done with Roxy, you need a pretty healthy spirit of adventure and sort of a go out and get it attitude. But do you think that's something that comes from your side or something that Roxy helps keep alive in you?
I have to say, I think I have a little bit of a spirit of adventure. I mean, I started racing motorcycles when I was 11 years old. And I've done that on and off for a few years. And I got to a point, I had a big bike accident in Joburg many years ago, and I spent 10 weeks in hospital for my sins regarding that. So when I had my little midlife crisis and decided that I needed to do something a little bit more sporty, the bike was not on the table.
Yeah.
Good choice.
So it was climb in the car, and it's an amazing feeling of freedom driving that car around.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting that, you know, there are some extreme cars. My road car is also a bit extreme to some people. But the thing is that Roxy's open, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot like driving a motorcycle. So you get the kind of the wind in...
Bugs in your
on
teeth.
you, exactly,
Yeah.
and the bugs in your teeth that you get with a motorcycle. So you get a lot of that open experience of, you know, being exposed.
And for those who have not seen a Harper, we're not talking convertible here. We're talking open top. There's no windscreen, there's no doors, there's no side windows.
There's no
you're
option
just
of a
outside.
roof or a windscreen.
You are driving outside.
Basically, if Jeremy Clarkson drove in a Harper, he would look exactly the same as when he drove the E011.
Yeah, his face would be flapping
Yes.
5 foot
To
behind
the
him.
completely uninitiated, it's almost like, you know, if a Formula One car had 2 seats
Yeah.
and the wheels were closed.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a Harper in a nutshell.
The styling takes certain cues from the LMP2 cars, the early
Yes.
LMP2 cars.
More
Yeah.
races,
Yeah.
definitely.
So it does have that open cockpit
And-
appearance.
And funny enough, even with it not having a roof or whatever, we actually established it's more practical than a 4C because it actually has a frunk. Well,
Yeah.
It's got more
Jim's
storage.
has a frunk.
It's got more storage space than my daily driver car. That is
So
true.
in 2015, when Craig decided to start contesting the South African Endurance Racing Series, he and Mike J and the rest of the crew drove up from Cape Town to the first race was actually at Goldfields. I don't even know what the circuit is called.
Pakisa.
Pakisa.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
I drove from PE because I was living in PE
Yeah.
at the time. So I drove from PE. We met at Gerriep Dam
Yeah.
and joined up
Convoyed
there
from
and
there.
drove through. And the return leg, I was going to turn off back to PE, and I just decided, well, no, I'll follow the guys and we'll just drive back to Cape Town. But Craig drove his car up to Pakisa. They competed. They finished, I think, second on the road, and they won the Team Spirit trophy.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And then drove back to Cape Town the next day.
Brilliant.
So
Not a lot of race cars can do that.
my car carried the 2-man tent, the camping chair, suitcase with a weekend's worth of clothes. So it was, it was all perfectly practical and possible.
Jim, I want to ask you like a step back because I find it fascinating. I feel like, you know, you get car enthusiasts like we are, and then you get someone that goes out and actually is willing to not only buy, let's say, you know, one of these like I know you could do it back in the day with the Lotus. You could basically buy the whole kit and manufacture it yourself. But you went to a point where you actually wanted to design your own car, right? Build your own dream car. What was it of whatever was available at the time that wasn't appealing to you that made you feel like, listen, I'm going to like combine my favorite elements of different cars and potentially build something myself?
So I think everybody knew the Lotus 7, and to me the 7 was just too small and too confining. So I wanted a car that was a little bit bigger than a Lotus 7. I've sat in a number of 7s, and you sit in the 7 with a passenger, and you know
It's
you're,
quite tight.
you're
It's
swapping
cozy.
you're swapping sweat if you're rubbing shoulders together.
There's a lot of involuntary man touching in a Lotus 7.
Yeah.
And the transmission tunnel is very narrow in a 7. Now, in the Harper, because it's mid-engined, that entire
Not a problem.
front end, there's nothing. The only thing that sometimes I think that I should try and install is a heater. But, you know, the Cobras and the 7s have all got this massive heat source in the front of them.
Yes.
And the Harpers, the heat source is behind you.
Behind
so-
you.
You'll need to have a fan to redirect
So-
the heat from.
And that kind of
I-
like, yeah. Oh, sorry, go for it.
Sorry, I actually owned a Lotus 7, which I didn't daily drive it, but I did use it for daily duties. So I would sometimes grab it and do my commute in it. I would go to the shops in it. I would go visit people far away in it. So I enjoyed that. But one thing that as I got older and I started having people in my life who actually cared about me and that kind of thing, one thing that kept coming up with the Lotus 7 is the safety aspect, because the 7, you're very exposed. I mean, in a
like
7,
a superbike, right?
if you're sitting in the driver's seat in my 7, for example, which was a Birkin S3, your entire right-hand shoulder, arm, even your leg is pretty much outside of the chassis. So if something hits you from the side, you're toast.
Yeah.
Whereas the Harper's got a little bit more metal and a little bit more structure around you, to the extent that you've actually had the odd mishap with your car, and I mean, you still feel safe driving it on the road. You're not.
Look, there was a relatively recent incident where I was T-boned at an intersection in Komiki Road. It was a low-speed collision, but I felt absolutely no threat whatsoever. I know of a T-boning incident, I think, with Craig's car in Botswana.
Craig's car got T-boned in Botswana.
And one chassis member had to be cut out and a new one welded in.
But even that, if I remember correctly, it wasn't done straight away. No. It was done several years later when he took the body off the car, because it was actually fine. Yeah. It just had a slight sort of kink in it.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, that's why the alignment I have to adjust a little more than usual.
That's literally the case. I mean, the impact in the incident I was involved in, the impact was on the body and the left front wheel. Yeah. And the biggest physical change was that it shifted the steering rack.
Oh, yes.
It knocked the steering rack, so my steering was now suddenly off like that. Knocked the steering rack back into position with a spirit level. Bingo, problem solved.
There you go.
It's just the fiberglass crack that was a bit unsightly.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Very cool.
That's kind of like, well, if let's say the Harper didn't exist and you didn't have the option of building your own car, what would you have? What would you guys have taken as an extreme track toy daily if Harper didn't exist? Let's say the world has gone mad and Harper didn't exist.
Well, you're saying you have to buy something from a mainstream manufacturer.
Yeah, mainstream manufacturer. What could you get?
First, maybe Jim, you should answer that one for us, like to lead in with.
If money was no object, I'd probably buy an Ultima.
Oh well.
But
yes.
Again,
that's pretty much the closest thing to a Harper that you can get.
Yeah,
that's quite
pretty
true.
much.
I didn't even think of that. Like, very similar sort of.
Very similar.
But here's the thing that keeps coming back with the Harpers is every car that you can possibly compare it to costs at least 2.5 times as much.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, Radical just came out with their new car, which
they're very expensive.
Performance-wise, it's fairly similar to the Harper. Weight-wise, it's a little bit lighter, maybe.
They're very serious cars, but they're expensive.
It's a very serious race car. It's not as practical as the Harper is.
No,
it's much smaller inside than the Harper is. You couldn't use it the way that Jim uses his Harper.
No.
But that thing was, what did we say? It was like 2 million rand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a similar story with Aerial Atoms. I've driven Aerial Atoms. I don't think they drive as nicely as a Harper does. Certainly not on the road, at least. But again, you're talking twice the price of a Harper. Ultimas,
but they're
same story.
They're hardcore cars, though. Like the Radical knows, they're hard cars. Yeah. You can't go to pee and back with them.
No,
you can hardly take them around Chapman's Peak, and your kidneys would be done.
The UK is a hotbed of men building cars in the shed at the bottom of the garden.
Yes.
And the Exo car in the Atom series came along, and a crowd called DJC built a car basically that I had created my little balsa wood model of, which is a 3-seater.
Oh, wow.
Originally, they powered it with an Aprilia RSV4.
Oh, yes.
Ooh. Okay.
Nice.
That can work.
But they created this car in such a fashion that the engine cradle bolts to the chassis.
Oh, yes. It's
So there's like four bolts that, and the engine cradle has now been redesigned to accept the Subaru 2.5 boxer motor.
No, it's...
So you can have the DJC Storm, V-Storm I think they call it, with an RSV4 or with a 2.5-litre boxer motor.
That could be quite fun.
Could be quite fun, yes.
Could be quite fun.
What would be your sort of? I mean, there's all the Harpers. All of them have. I don't think there's one with exactly the same engine as the next. Are you happy with what's in your car? Or would you? Is there like sort of like a specific spec?
I think the sweet spot is that Toyota 2-litre turbo motor.
Yes.
There are that I know of. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there are 5 cars with the same motor now.
Okay.
That's the 3SGTE.
Yes, now that's the motor. It's the family of the motor that's in my car.
It's the one basically you want in the RAV.
In the RAV, I've got the 3SGT, which is also the Camry motor, and then the 3GTE is the turbo version of that.
Silica.
Yeah.
So one was in a Silica.
Exactly. It was in the. It's famous for being in the Silica.
Yes.
And the MR2. Some of the
MR2
MR2s.
turbo also had that.
Lovely engine.
Yeah. Curiously enough, that motor is also used in a JDM little people carrier called a Caldina.
Yes, yes.
And
Never heard of it.
the engine that I have in Roxy
It's a
now
Caldina
came
one.
from a Caldina because it came with a flex plate on it.
So you've got an engine from a mommy van in your your very fast car.
Well, I can't say with 100% certainty, but there was also a JDM version of the High Ace, which was exclusively used as ambulances in Japan that came with the 1UZ engine. And I suspect that it's quite possible that my 1UZ for my Harper came out of an ambulance.
So Jim, what is wrong with Q for not finishing his then? You know, like have you figured out that one out how to as the Harper community, because we're trying very hard from our side to get to finish it.
It took Jeff 5 years to build his car.
I am breaking that record. I am like...
That's about 10 years less.
He's like the Nico Hulkenberg of like with Formula One, like all these without a win. Like he's the Nico Hulkenberg of Harper building. He will get the record longest on without actually having a finished car.
I have the oldest Harper and the newest one at the same time, which is, no one else can say that. That's...
Talk about mothballing. The oldest Harper with 0 kilometers on it.
Yeah. But yeah. So... plans for Roxy in the future, Jim? Are there road trips that you still want to take on? Are there mods that you want to do?
We're planning a little road trip 1st of June. We're going to go up to Citrusdal. We've got a little route worked out that takes us through all the interesting passes that we can possibly combine. So starting from Big Bay, off through the delightful little Western Cape towns. We go through Wellington, we'll take Bainskloof, we'll go up. But the final pass before we reach Citrusdal is that Pioneerskloof.
Oh, lovely.
And that's such a gorgeous road.
It is.
Surface quality is superb. And on a Saturday afternoon, I'm hoping there won't be that many 18-wheeler rigs to spoil the route. Curiously, yesterday I came through Chapman's Peak on the way to Camps Bay, and there were only 5, count them, 5 cyclists on the whole of Chapman's Peak.
That must be a record.
At 7:45
Did
on
you
a
get
Sunday
a WhatsApp,
morning.
Neil? What was there some gathering of cyclists on, or?
You don't have to pinpoint me now. I don't know about this.
It also transpired that I have a new personal best across Chappies.
Okay.
So we
It's
time it
obviously in Mexico,
we time it from Jake's to the Chapman's Peak Hotel.
Okay. And that's the Chapman's Peak in Mexico,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
The one-
El Chapo Pico.
Yes.
El Chapo Pico with 114 corners and curves.
There we go.
That one.
Sounds like one.
There's for me something about riding. I mean, we've all had like our fair share of bikes and interesting cars. For me, you know what it comes down to is, I call it micro adventures. Like there's the people that, and that's the one thing that almost I push against every time I think about selling my car. I mean, it's nothing as extreme as what you have, but that feeling of just quickly popping down to the shops and going through that ritual of starting it, something that's so also compromised, has got its own develops such a personality. And I call it like, you go on these sort of mini adventures, 5-minute pop down to the shop. It's not just like a dreary drive where you're stuck in your head, you're occupied with what you do. And
I'm fortunate at the moment, living in Kommetjie. I'm a member of the Seven Seas Club in Simonstown, so I'll pop round to Seven Seas on a Saturday afternoon, go and watch rugby or something like that. So jump in the car, and it's either come through Scarborough and over Red Hill or over Black Hill and down the Simonstown Road. And it's such a feeling of freedom.
Yeah. It doesn't get old. Doesn't get old.
I mean, you are also very privileged to stay in an area where you get to drive those awesome little passes and roads on a daily basis. I mean,
We have got those stunning roads. When I turn around and tell people that Chapman's Peak is my local,
Your local commute.
they go, "Oh." Yeah, I mean, at one stage I actually had a frequent users pass for Chappies.
You probably should still have one.
I was doing Chappies roughly 60 times a month.
Oh, wow.
So
Well,
yeah.
then you don't want a soft SUV or whatever to do your daily commute
Exactly.
in. So it's a valid point to have a Harper.
Exactly. It's better suited to the job.
Yeah.
I still think it's like one of the best. Sorry, Q. I keep on interrupting in between. One of the nicest roads, actually, now not off topic, but we talk about these little roads. The road at the back of Kirstenbosch, right there against the mountain. It's got such nice banking in it.
Southern Cross Drive.
Yes. Is it Southern? Yes, it's the top of Southern Cross Drive.
Kirstenbosch to La Prada. La Parada.
La Parada, yes.
Yeah.
Such a nice bank. I mean, it's always too full of traffic, but if you get that empty, like late. I remember we did a run once in the Mexico version of that late at night, where it was fairly open, there was no cyclists on other cars, and it's lovely if you can go through there. And I guess something with a Harper, in a summer's evening.
So back in the day when I was still working in the gas shop, we had this Nissan 1400 Bucky. And I can tell you that one morning I went through there to do a gas installation, and somehow I just caught a gap in traffic. And a little 1400 Nissan Bucky on that road is superb.
Skinny little tires.
With gas in the back.
Yeah, for extra downforce.
Feel alive.
Basically sampling hydrogen vehicles.
The joy is, in the Western Cape, we've got such magnificent roads. And when you've got an open-top car and you can actually look around you, there are times when you're not actually pressing quite so hard and you can focus, you're not focused totally on the next
road,
corner. You can look up and you can look around you and you can take in the beauty that the Western Cape has. It's absolutely, you can't beat it.
So Andre, take notes of convertibles.
Yeah, convertibles are worth it, bro.
They're worth it.
So I enjoy my extreme dailies very like a little metal tin with a roof over it. So I don't get to enjoy that. I enjoy driving it, but it gets a bit hot in there, if I'm honest. That's one of the downsides, I'd say. Yours is you get a bit too cold. Mine is I get a bit hot because the engine is behind me as well. Mine is very close to me, and there's nothing really between me and the engine. So the aircon works fine. I've got an aircon. It works fine, but it doesn't get to your back.
If it's got aircon, is it really that extreme?
Yeah, so it's not that extreme. I always say it. People are like, oh, it's extreme. I'm like, it's got an aircon. What else do you want? How squeamish can you be?
It's got aircon, it's got airbags.
It's got one.
You know what extreme
airbag.
car, and I always, for some reason, I always talk about these cars in every episode, and someone's going to kill me.
Is it a
for
deer car for you?
No, it's not a deer car.
Is it
quite
a junior?
It's
Do you
not a junior, but that's brilliant.
Is it a car that you need to adjust its carburetor in the wet? Is that what you're basically saying?
No. One of the cars that I feel like would be the best daily extreme car is Abov 695 Piposta with the sequential.
I'm not sure that's extreme.
That's an extreme, bro.
It's supposed to be the most extreme Abov you can get. You can get a road car with a sequential shifter.
It's got a cool shifter, but it's still.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean,
think
you
it's
don't
very
get
cool.
a radio.
My thing about Roxy is that for me, people ask about it and I say it's a totally analog car.
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't have power-assisted brakes.
No.
It doesn't have power-assisted steering. It's got a 5-speed manual gearbox.
Yeah.
If you had 4 wires, you can make it work.
Yeah.
That's the
There's,
thing.
there's like I think there's like modern variations of extreme dailies like that you have. I think like something like the 4C or a Vipasto would be like that. But then you get like a group of cars like a Lotus or the Harper
Super
that has
lightweight,
got
really
super
analog.
basic.
no radio, no air conditioning, manual gearbox, that sort of thing where there's just no
That's
creature
my kind of
comforts.
car.
I'm going to need to cut off the roof of the Spider to make it a monoposto to get an extreme alpha.
That would be very cool.
Honestly.
That'd be very cool.
It'd be
They're
very
cool
cool.
cars.
You already don't have the aircon in, so you're already halfway
Exactly,
there.
I'm
You're gonna be
halfway
better
there.
off if you take it's going to be cooler if you...
Just take it off.
So one of the things that I loved about my Birkin, my Lotus 7, and one of the things that, when you look back on it, all the memories you've got with that car. So obviously, like you were saying, your micro adventures, going down to the shops in it, you got to get into it. There's no door. You got to step over it, get into it. You got to strap yourself in. You got to put your steering wheel on because it's on a quick release thing. There's no key. There's a sort of sequence of switches and a button that you hit, and then it starts. And then driving the thing is just completely alien because it's unlike any other car on the road. So it sort of turns every single drive that you go on into an event. But one of the other things that sort of makes it special is people's reaction to it. Now, I don't buy my cars or drive cars based on what other people think of them, but it is really cool when you're driving something that literally just by cruising past, you have made that person's day.
Yeah.
And Roxy has that as well. The Harpers do that in spades. So I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite reaction that you've had to Roxy just cruising down the street?
I can't count the number of people when I'm stopped. They look at the car and they go, "Can I take a photo?" Hell yes. I've got two little magnetic decals that I use when I take the car to a show, and they say, "Touch me, feel me,"
That's awesome.
because a lot of the cars that are on display,
Don't touch.
people are going, "Don't even breathe on it."
Yeah.
And to create the next generation of petrol heads,
You want them to climb in.
you want people to climn in, sit behind the driver's steering wheel.
feel how special it is.
And when you see these 3, 4, 5-year-old kids just
Jumping
with this
in the
big
car.
grin, and mommy's well pleased as well because she's got picture of Junior in the sexy car.
Yeah.
It's a winning formula.
And mommy's got a photo with the young
driver as well, handsome
with
young
the
driver.
handsome devil driving, so everyone's happy. It's a win-win-win.
She got
The
the kid to
Harper-
go, "Don't go and pose with that car." No,
Harper-
I don't like cars, Mum. Go pose with that car.
But, the Harper's actually quite well suited to that anyway, because if you look around the showroom here, some of these cars, I wouldn't necessarily even put my 5-year-old into it because she would destroy them. But the Harper is, it's fairly utilitarian and it's pretty robust, if I can put it that way.
Very much so.
You would have to do something monumentally stupid to break something in there, which is also quite cool.
Yeah, but I think you touched on something in terms of the car community there that for me rings true. When we went out and we had breakfast with other members of your sort of, I think the crew that you guys drive with, I thoroughly enjoyed it because I think there's such an element of that's missing in the car community these days. Because we have got this sort of thing where people that drive interesting cars like that are sometimes, I'm to a point where I really don't want to actually engage with, if you get to a normal park off, it's little clusters of people talking about, all by themselves. You try and have an awkward conversation with someone, and that's not what the car community is about. It's about sharing experiences like that, right? And sharing a passion. So I think it's important. I 100% agree with you. It's something that we need to share with the rest of the with the rest of the community.
I had a funny experience on Saturday. I went to the SAF museum at Easterplaat, and I drove in, and I parked right in front of their little coffee clutch, and one of the guys came stumbling out. He said, "This won't do." He said, "You've got more people looking at your car than our aeroplanes."
You should have told him, must I park it inside then?
Well, you could just stick wings on it and make it fly.
So one of the things about an extreme daily, or something that's very different, right, is that, you know, you do get attention, whether you want it or not, right? So sometimes if you're in a hurry, you know, and there's always some that tells me, well, I used to own an Alpha when I was a young man, and I had a Giulietta in the 70s, 80s. You know, so sometimes there's
I think he is that worm.
Are you sure you're not talking to yourself in the mirror, Andre? Is that what's
I may
happening?
be on both sides of the fence. I'm maybe just talking to myself. I was caught out. But I do feel, there's one thing that I feel strongly about, and that is that, like you said, you know, interact with a car, whatever. It's, if you drive something nice, we were all that little kid that was like, oh, it's so cool, I just want to, you know, so it's your duty, it's my privilege and my duty to share that with youngsters, with people who are interested, and take out the time of my day. If they want to talk about it, chat about it, be nice about it, you know, if they want to take a photo, do it. And things for me, things like, and I mean, we've done some things together as well, like, you know, matric farewells. We had an episode about that as well. You know, I feel that it's not, there's people who charge a lot of money to do things like that. You know, you can make a few $1,000 if you drive for a matric farewell. For me, it's something that I love doing. You know, I go wash my car and I go do it, and I take off the evening.
Well, you have your car washed.
Yes, I do. Only when I go on matric farewells. But to me, I feel it's we should be sharing it, even if it costs me a little bit of time, or costs me a little bit of something.
100%.
You know, you should do it.
So one of the things that I've done is I've found a little app that allows me to print a QR code.
Yeah.
So I've got a QR code, and when you scan it with your phone, it takes you to that, and it pops up a little...
Okay, so I'm going to
story.
read this. It says, this is Roxy, a Harper Type 5, and one of only 18 such cars built by Harper Sports Cars, powered by a 2-liter turbocharged engine. Performance is sublime, 0 to 100 in 3.5 seconds. Top speed is over 250. Please feel free to touch, feel, and take photos. I ask only that you are respectful.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Very cool. And that's on Roxy all the time.
On Roxy all the time.
That's perfect.
Very cool.
It's got a little QR code on the back, and it says, scan me.
Love it.
Lekker.
On those.
Well, guys, I think that's all we've got time for on Extreme Dailies. Jim, I want to say thank you very much for coming through and chatting to us. We hope to catch up with you on some of our runs as you do. You're coming to our Park and Bry event, aren't you?
I think very certainly going to be at the Park and Bry. Thank you
Awesome.
guys for the
And
invitation.
Park and Bry, for those who don't know, is happening at Rich Meats in Milnerton, and that's going to be on the 18th of this month,
So it's the day after they've listened to this episode.
the day after you listen to this episode.
So tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Come on over.
come on down to Milnerton. There's going to be some cool cars on display there. Rich and his guys cook some meat up on the Bry, and you can order some awesome meat, look at some cool cars, talk to us, and possibly meet Jim and Roxy.
And he's got some proper meat there.
Yeah, he does.
some good-
He's got some
And
awesome
some good
stuff
cars.
there. And we're gonna. Last year we had an awesome turnout. I'm expecting we're gonna have the same, if not more, this year. So it's gonna be a good one.
If you're a vegan, sorry.
Yeah, if you're vegan, meh.
It will be a sausage feast, plus there will also be meat.
Thanks, Neil. Just in case we weren't cancelled yet.
And on that bombshell.
we need more females as part of our car, in the group at the moment, which we don't have.
So, ladies, if you were wondering, that was an invitation. That's what you were
I don't know many ladies who could refuse an invitation like that. So on that note, I suspect that staying classy is not even an option, but we're going to say it anyway.
Do your best, San Diego.
Yeah, stay classy.
We should actually give Jim the honor.
Well, thank you guys. It's been entertaining and enlightening. And let's meet again
Indeed.
on the road.
And stay classy like
And
Jim.
stay classy.
Stay classy, San Diego.
There we go. That's it. We're done.
Sausage fest.